Hello, my name is Jessie and I would like to start this video by saying I know that the wing on my left eye is a little messy, and I also know now that I'm looking at the screen that you can't really see it, but if on the off chance that someone happens to see it, I would like to acknowledge it first because I know that it's there and I chose not to fix it. I don't really care. I'm okay with it. I've accepted it. I've accepted the messy wing. I would like you all to accept it as well. And now I'm going to tell you about all of the books that I read in April. The first book I read in April was In Real Life by Jessica Love. And I enjoyed this book, but I also had issues with it. So basically this book is about these two people named Hannah and Nick, right? Yes. They're like 17, I think. They're best friends, but they've never met each other in person. They've talked on the internet, they've video chatted, they send each other gifts and care packages, and they talk on the phone all the time. They know each other inside and out, but they've just never physically met each other, never been near each other. So Hannah lives in California and Nick lives in Vegas, and they've never met each other. And at the beginning of Hannah's spring break, she knows that Nick is going to be having a concert that weekend in Vegas, so she and her best friend and her older sister decide they're going to take their parents' car while their parents are on vacation and road trip it to Nevada to finally meet Nick in person and see his band play. And the entire time they're like deciding to go, and when they're driving there and getting there, Hannah's sister and her best friend are both harping on the fact that Hannah and Nick have feelings for each other, and Hannah refuses to admit it, but she, in her head, she knows that she kind of does. Or she at least has some sort of feeling for him that's like more than a friend, but she doesn't want to admit it yet. It is very hot, but she doesn't want to admit that yet. So they go, they get there, they see Nick, and once they get there, they realize that there's some stuff that Nick has not told Hannah, that Nick has not been honest about with Hannah, and well, it all goes downhill from there. So I do like this book now that I've read it, I've digested it, I've had some time to reflect. I need to open the window because I'm dying. From this point forward, I am so sorry about the sound, but it is hot and I'm sweaty and I'm dying and I needed to open that window. So, back to the book. Yes, I did enjoy this book. But as I was reading it, I was really annoyed with this book because it's one of those stories where everything could have been solved so much sooner if the two characters, Nick and Hannah, just talk to each other honestly. And they tried to do that a lot, but then they just didn't do it for no good reason. There were so many times where Nick and Hannah were alone. They were away from everyone else they were with, everyone else in their group, all of their friends, whatever. It was just the two of them, and they didn't talk about what they needed to talk about. I don't understand why. They just didn't. It's very obvious that they both have feelings for each other, and we know that they both have stuff that they haven't been telling each other. A lot of it pertaining to those feelings, some of it pertaining to other things too, but they're given the opportunity to talk about them and they're choosing not to talk about them. Like, there's a point where Nick is trying to talk and Hannah literally runs away from him. That's one of the things that I hate in books and movies and television shows, where the problem could just be solved if you tell the other party whatever you need to tell them, whatever you're trying not to tell them. If you just tell it to them and you tell them honestly, and you don't try to keep secrets and you don't lie to them, just tell them the truth and things will work out so much better, so much faster. Because, you know, as an audience member, as a media consumer, I know that the other person is gonna find out anyway, and I know that it's just for the drama factor, but I feel like at this point in time, at this point in the world, when there's been so many books published and so many TV shows made and so many movies made that all rely on this same trope of just keeping secrets, I don't even know if that's considered a trope, but whatever, that just rely on keeping secrets for the dramatization and to move the story along, I feel like we can do better. I feel like so much better can be done than just lying and keeping secrets. If you want to create an obstacle so they can't talk to each other about how they feel, give them a better obstacle than themselves. Because, you know, at one point, having yourself be the obstacle was probably really deep and like moving and mind-blowing for your audience, but it's not anymore. Because you know what? It's not even like some deep down thing that we don't realize comes from Hannah or Nick, that comes from the character. That is their obstacle. It's just the choices they're making are actively the obstacle. Like, she's choosing to leave and he's choosing to not talk and somebody's choosing to lie. And I'm very passionate about this. If they just were honest with each other, things would have been better. But I liked the end of it. The ending was cute and it made me happy, and the beginning was cute and it made me happy. It's just the middle, where all the conflict was, where all the meat was. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't my favorite. But then again, I'm known for being a sucker for exposition. That's usually my favorite part of a story. So I'm a character development exposition kind of gal, not an action kind of gal. I mean, of course I like watch movies and read books and watch TV shows for action and for plot, but sometimes it's not my favorite, but a lot of times it's not my favorite. Anyway, that was the first book. That's how I felt about it. I felt a lot of things about it. I talked for a very long time. The next book I read was Harley Quinn Breaking Glass by Mariko, Tamaki, and Steve Pugh, and I'm so sorry if I pronounced those wrong. I went phonetically. Harley Quinn Breaking Glass is a standalone graphic novel, I believe, that follows the story of Harley in high school. What happens is that her mom has gone on, I don't know, I think she's on a boat or she's in a different country or something, but she sends Harley to live with her grandmother. And when Harley gets to the grandmother's apartment, she finds out that the grandmother had just recently died, but the landlord hadn't really changed the apartment yet, and so the landlord mama agrees to let Harley stay there. And they kind of become close. Mama takes Harley under their wing and tries to protect her and teach her about the neighborhood. And in the building that Mama owns, there's a drag club in it. And a lot of the people who perform there also live in the building, or at least are close friends with Mama. They get to know Harley. They all become like this close little, cute little like kitschy misfit family, and it's very sweet. And I enjoy it very much. So that's the home life. At school, Harley meets Pamela Isley. Pamela Isley is this young progressive activist who comes from a family of progressive activists, and they are a big part of the neighborhood community garden. And when they find out this rich family, not the Waynes, but this rich family in town are trying to buy everything, they want to rip up the garden, they want to buy Mama's building, and basically they're gentrifying the entire neighborhood. And Pamela is trying, and her family are trying to fight that. And Harley kind of wants to fight that, but she doesn't really understand the whole concept of social justice. She's a little bit destructive. And Pamela's like, dude, what are you doing? And then Harley meets the Joker, which is just some dude wearing like a plastic bag on his face or something. It's like a really dumb, it's like a really funny but stupid portrayal, but he's like a terrible person still. So my feelings about this book, I absolutely loved it. I thought it was so good. I thought it was well written. I thought the art was great. I thought the storytelling was beautiful. I think it's really good. I love the whole thing is basically about gentrification, and I think that's a really important topic. I think that's a really important thing that needs to be addressed in America as a whole, but especially in New York City, in Brooklyn, and major hubs like this, because they've been gentrified and they've been getting gentrified for a really long time, and it's continuing to happen. And gentrification is a really big thing, and it's a really important thing to discuss, and it's something that it makes it impossible for a lot of people to live here, and it doesn't make any sense. I don't know what I want to say. I really appreciate that this book was written and was made, to talk about the topic that it talks about in the way that it does, because it's about Harley trying to find out who she is and what she believes in and how she wants to get the things she wants, because she's faced with this choice of because she knows she wants to save the neighborhood, she wants to save the city from these big corporations, but she's really faced with the choice of, is she going to be on Pamela's side and save it with protests and save it with her mind and her effort and her hard work, or is she going to side with the Joker, and is she going to save it by blowing up major corporations and trying to rob the people who want to buy everything, and how is she really going to go about trying to do what she thinks is right? I really, really enjoyed this book. It made me feel, I don't know what it made me feel, but I really liked it. And I want to know what's happening next in this Harley Quinn's life. I want to drink my tea, but I'm already hot and the tea is hot, and I feel like if I drink it I'm going to sweat even more and I'm gonna want to die. The next book I read is And We're Off by Dana Schwartz, and I did an entire vlog about this book. So I'm not going to talk about it too much. In one of the blurbs or reviews or something for this book, someone compares it, says it's like a Gilmore Girls story, or it's like comparable to Gilmore Girls, and at first I was like, this is nothing like Gilmore Girls, and this is nothing like the time they went to Europe on Gilmore Girls, even though they didn't show them in Europe, they just showed them coming back from Europe. Still, this is nothing like that. And then when I was like halfway through the book, I realized that when someone says it's like Gilmore Girls, they didn't mean it was like Lorelai and Rory, because it's totally not like Lorelai and Rory, but it's exactly like Lorelai and Emily, and that blew my mind. That was wild to me, because I was like, no one really refers to Lorelai and Emily as the Gilmore Girls. It's Lorelai and Rory. Emily is a Gilmore Girl, and like, but usually when you when you're thinking about a mother-daughter duo, you think about Lorelai and Rory. You don't necessarily think about Lorelai and Emily, but then you realize it, you see it, and it's insane. So the next book I read was Too Fat, Too Slutty, Too Loud, The Rise and Reign of the Unruly... Bleh. The next book I read was Too Fat, Too Slutty, Too Loud, The Rise and Reign of the Unruly Woman by Helen Petersen. In this book, Helen Petersen talks about 10 different women, or 11 technically. One of them is a chapter about 2 women together. She talks about these, and she gives them each an adjective that they're quote unquote too much of. Like for Melissa McCarthy, she's too fat. Kim Kardashian is too pregnant. Serena Williams is too strong. Abby Jacobson and Alana Glacier are too gross because of Broad City. She talks about that a lot. Caitlyn Jenner is too queer. Madonna is too old. I remember I stopped on the Caitlyn Jenner chapter because I was like, I'm so tired of this book. I'm so bored. I cannot read it anymore. And I know, so there were I think 2 chapters that I didn't read. This book, I appreciate what it was trying to do, but I feel like it could have gone about it better, because the book was only like 230 pages and I still feel like every single chapter was way too long. It didn't need to be as long as it was. She went on so many tangents within each chapter. I was just like, dude, you're not even talking about the woman the chapter's about anymore. And even with the choices she made, I feel like for each one of these things, for some of them, not all of them, for some of them, she could have made better choices. Because also, when I look at the 11 women she talked about, only 2 of them were women of color. And to my knowledge, only 1 or 2 of them are queer. To my knowledge, I'm not sure about that. But just even in the way she talked about them in the book, how they were too whatever, I feel like in her writing she kind of proved herself wrong about some of them, how they were not too whatever they were. Yeah, I didn't really care for this book too much. I feel like it could have been done a lot better, but it wasn't the worst book I've ever read, and for the most part, I appreciate it for what it tried to do. The next book I read was More Happy Than Not by Silvera, and I read this book a few years ago, and I loved it very, very much. This book fucks you up, like a lot. I've read all of Adam Silvera's books, and his first 3 solo books definitely fuck you up in various ways. And I know that, and I understand that. And this one, of the 3, this one isn't my favorite. This one's probably my least favorite of those, but I still really like it. And going back and rereading it, I can see it happening now. Because you know when you read something or you watch something and there's a big reveal, and in your mind you try to like go back over and see all the little hints that were there that you didn't really pick up on. When you go back and you reread it or rewatch it, you can see all those little hints, and I did that and I was just like, wow. I really liked this book, and I liked reading it with someone else who hadn't read it before and didn't really know what it was about, so they didn't know what to expect, and then seeing the reaction as they read and watching it fuck them up is great. Not in a sadistic way, very much, like 8%, but also just, I don't know, it's nice. I like to see people that I know read the books that I've read and that I've loved and just watch them experience it. I don't know, I think it's a lot of fun. Like, you know, when you watch a movie with someone that you love that they've never seen before, a movie that you love that they've never seen before, and you just spend the whole time watching them because you want to see how they're reacting to the important parts. It's like that. And it's great. This is about a boy named Aaron. I was gonna say Mateo. Mateo is from a different book. This is about a boy named Aaron. He lives in the Bronx, and Aaron's got some shitty fucking friends. They're the worst. I hate them all so much. And it just makes me think that teenage boys, it makes me think about the fact that yes, teenage boys have some modicum of privilege in the world, way more than teenage girls, in a lot of respects. But in some respects, they don't. And these are respects that people don't talk about. Like, people are starting to talk about it, and it's great, the whole toxic masculinity thing, but Aaron doesn't have any good friends really in this book. Until he meets Thomas. Thomas is the person he meets and who comes and shakes up his life. Aaron only really has 2 people in the book that are good friends to him that he can count on, and that's Genevieve, his girlfriend, and Thomas. But my point is that Aaron has this whole group of friends already that he's lived with and grown up with, and no matter how much time they spend together, they don't actually care about him. Or they kind of care about him, but they don't care about him in the way that he needs them to care about him. They care about him in their way. And I don't know how to explain that more without like giving away the story, 'cause I don't want to give away the story. But I feel like if you read it, or if you have read it, then you understand what I'm trying to say when I say that all of Aaron's friends who live in the building with him, who live in the same building he lives in, are not really good friends. And that's what I have to say about this book. The next book I read was Casey Weiss, Spitfire Vengeance by Joseph Russell. This book was really short. It was like 100 and something pages. I read it in like a day, and I didn't not like it, but it's not what I wanted it to be based on the introduction of the book itself and the synopsis of the book. Just the way everything played out is not how I wanted it to go, not what I felt would have been right for it. The introduction starts when Casey's like 8 years old. She has an older brother, she has a younger sister. They're playing like Monopoly or something in their house, and then someone comes and this whole thing ensues, and Casey's parents are killed right outside of the house while the kids are home, and then all the kids are separated. Casey and her older brother both go to different relatives, and their younger sister gets put into the foster care system, but they don't get any other information on her. Then it jumps ahead 15 years. Casey's 23 years old. She is a detective, she's a cop, she works in the department that her father organized to help, like, put together to fight organized crime in their neighborhood. And on Casey's day off, she gets an invitation to the house of the major crime boss in their city. And her boss tells her that she shouldn't go, but she does, because that's who she is. This mafia gentleman offers her a position to work for him and be his mole in the police department, and she declines. And in the conversation of her declining, this man basically admits that he ordered a hit on her father for not accepting this same offer 15 years ago. to be his mole in the police department. So Casey goes back to work. She goes back home, actually. So Casey goes back home, and she sees that 2 people have broken into her apartment, and they're still there, and they're looking for her, and then they try to kill her because in the time it takes for her to get from his house to her house, which is probably not super far, he's already put a hit out on her, and people are trying to kill her. They don't. Spoiler. They don't. So basically the rest of the book is the police department trying to protect Casey while also trying to take down this dude. And there's just not enough time for it to all happen. When I looked up this book on Goodreads, I'm pretty sure at some point it was a graphic novel, but I don't know for sure because I didn't look into it too hard. And I feel like if it's a graphic novel, it could have worked better than it did. And then also there's like a B storyline or a C storyline of Casey and her older brother looking for their little sister because it's been 15 years and they have no idea what happened to her, or who she's with, or where she is, or where she went in the foster care system. And when I was reading, I was just like, that's the storyline that I care about. I don't really care about this mafia boss dude. So I was like, oh, maybe if there was a second book, it would be great, and they would go on with that part. But I don't know if there is a second book. I don't think there is. I'm looking at Joseph Russell's Goodreads profile right now, but it only has 1 book, which is Casey Vice Spitfire Vengeance. And this is the picture that originally shows up. I'll just put it there, it'll look better. I don't see anything that says if this was a graphic novel anywhere. I just see that that's what the cover looks like. But whatever, not the point. Well, kind of the point. If it was a graphic novel, it would work better, and there should be a second book that goes on about Casey and her brother looking for their sister. And the story itself wasn't told in a bad way. It was fine storytelling, it was fine writing. Everything worked out. Like, it wasn't bad. It just wasn't what I wanted. I don't know how to explain it the way that I'm explaining it. Like, in my head, when I'm picturing everything that happened as it happened, it makes a lot of sense how the introduction didn't track throughout the rest of it. Especially when you get to the end. It makes a lot of sense in my head when I'm imagining it visually, how it doesn't track. But I don't know how to translate that verbally. I did not like it. I enjoyed it. It's just not what I expected. And it's not really what I wanted out of it. But it was still pretty good. Also, I got that book and I read that book because there's an Instagram account that gave me an opportunity to do a review, to read this book and do a review of it, and that is how I got it. That is why I read it. And I posted a review on Instagram and Goodreads and Amazon. The last book I read in April was an arc of 10 Things I Hate About Pinky by Sandhya Menon, and I got that from being on her street team. And I really, really love this book. So I've read When Dimple Met Rishi, and I've read There's Something About Sweetie, and I absolutely adored both of those books. And I have a very personal connection to those books specifically that I feel like I've talked about a lot, or I might have just thought about it a lot, or I don't know. I feel like it's something about me that people know, but I actually don't know if that's true. 10 Things I Hate About Pinky is the third and final book in the Dimpleverse. It follows one of Ashish's best friends. Her name is Pinky. She is on vacation with her family in their summer lake house, and she invites up Ashish's friend Samir, who's kind of her friend but kind of not, because Samir and Pinky very much do not get along. Samir and Pinky very much do not get along, and they're prone to getting into fights because they're always butting heads. They always disagree with each other. But Pinky gets into kind of a scrape, and she ends up telling her mother that she has a boyfriend, and so when Samir's summer internship falls through, he doesn't really want to go home, so he takes Pinky up on her offer to go to her lake house and pretend to be her boyfriend for the rest of the summer. Things from there are interesting. They're kind of pretending to be boyfriend and girlfriend. They're putting in some effort, but they're not really going in because they're letting their dislike of each other personally really, really get in the way of what should be their relationship, their loving relationship. And it's really funny. So I read this book over the course of a couple of days, and dude, it fucked me up emotionally. I cried a lot when I read it. So the whole reason that Pinky ends up saying that she has a new boyfriend is because on their piece of land there's also a barn, and one night the barn catches on fire, and Pinky's mom immediately assumes that it was Pinky and starts screaming at her in front of the family, in front of the fire department, just not even letting Pinky defend herself, not letting anyone else talk. She's just railing on Pinky for setting fire to the barn for God knows what reason. And Pinky ends up blurting out something about her having a boyfriend, and that moment itself I thought that was a really weird thing to say, but I get why that's what she had to say for the story to happen. It just seemed like a weird time and a weird reaction, but it was funny. I can suspend my disbelief enough for that, but that doesn't mean I won't talk about it after. That thing with Pinky and her mom just not believing her, and then having her cousin Dolly is also there with her, and the way that Pinky's relationship with Dolly is that they're very close, but Pinky also feels very inferior to her because of how their parents talk about each other, especially about Dolly, because they think that Dolly is basically the golden child, and they're like, Pinky's this destructive little rebel who can't, like, whatever. So while Pinky loves her cousin, she's really insecure about that, and just that family dynamic resonates with me in some respects, in my personal recollection of what my family and my childhood was like. And I can't say that that's super accurate and that's necessarily what happened to me, but I know that that was definitely part of my life. I wasn't this crazy, super destructive rebel child that they assume Pinky to be, but I had my moments. And I have 6 cousins. Or when I was a child, I had 6 cousins. I have more now, but I'm not part of it. When I was a kid, I had 6 cousins, and it was a lot. I felt the dynamic. That's what I'm saying. Because you know what? That's a whole other can of worms. I'm not getting into it. But all in all, I think 10 Things I Hate About Pinky was a beautiful way to wrap up this universe, this world of characters, and I really loved it. I couldn't have asked for anything better. I think it was a great ending story. All of the Dimple books just fucked me up, and I love them so much. That's all of the 7 books that I read in the month of April. It's really hot. That's all I have to say for this video, and I will see you eventually with a new one. Bye. Hey, still Jessie here. I just wanted to include this quick little thing at the end. On the left is a picture of me on my first day of my first year of college ever, way back in 2016. That was a wild year. And then on the right is a picture of me and 2 of my best friends that I met at college on the first day of our last year of college, because today is May 28th of 2020, and today is the day of our college graduation, and it's an unbelievable feeling. We're finally here, because on one hand, it feels like it's taken 10 years of college for us to get here, but on the other hand, it feels like it's been 10 minutes, and I can't believe that we're actually finally done. And it just is completely unreal, and I know that we're all going through something wild right now. It's something completely unprecedented, and we don't get to actually have our in-person commencement ceremonies, and that sucks, but the fact that that sucks should not overshadow the fact that we accomplished something so great. And I'm so proud of all of us. I'm so proud of everyone who is graduating this year, whether it be from college or high school or graduate school or PhD school or whatever. This is a really big milestone, and I just don't want anyone to forget that. So, congratulations to the class of 2020. We're all doing great things. I'm so proud of everyone graduating this year, getting through whatever you've gotten through for getting this far. You're all doing a great job, and I'm really excited for what you all do in the future, myself included. So, congratulations again.